Morning all, it's Chris Thompson here from Property Portal Marketing. We are now on our 5th episode. Happy days. We got something special for you. I am with, of course, the wonderful Simona. I'm also with Jane from Turkish Connections. Hello, Jane. And I'm with the fabulous Iain from Cameron's Property. We are going to be talking about real estate portals. So that is the likes of A Place in the Sun, Rightmove, Greenacres, Zoopla, bang, bang, bang. Loads of them out there. Probably take me an hour to go through all of them. But the idea is that we want to talk about property portals in general. What are they? What are their responsibilities? All from an agent perspective. So where do we start?
I'm starting. Is it worth using the real estate portal?
Is it easy to use?
No. Is it worth? So let's go first. Is it worth using them?
Well, I thought we should cover what property portals are. I'll be honest, most estate agents, I'd have thought most agents know what property portals are, right? But let's put it really simple. They are a means of advertising properties online, and essentially people can go on the portals, they can look for properties that they want to buy, and they can make inquiries. I suppose from my point of view, it's a little bit like a comparison site, bit like Go Compare, something like that. Yeah. You can go on and there's loads of properties from loads of different agents and all these kind of different areas. You can search for what you want. And then if you find something you like, you can make an inquiry. That's probably the really simple explanation of a portal.
Correct.
Let's delve straight in to you guys, really. So Jane and Iain, let's delve straight in here and kind of ask really openly what your experience of portals, property portals and advertising on property portals has been over the last sort of 5 to 10 years.
You can go first.
Thanks. Oh dear, right. I've done a recce this morning on my property portals to see what they've brought in this year. I've done property portals, Facebook and social media marketing, and my own. And my own outstrips all of them now. So I generate more inquiries myself directly from my own website. So that tells 1,000 stories in my view, because when I first started 20 years ago, that would definitely not have been the norm. So 20 years of business has now completely swung my inquiries the opposite way. So I'm actually not reliant on portals anymore. If I dropped them, I wouldn't lose that much. Social media comes a good second. So that shows that now is taking over property portals, in my view.
I'm kind of glad to hear.
I bet you are, Simona. I bet you are. Yeah.
I'll be asking for a pay rise after this.
I think, Jane, to be honest with you, your comment's absolutely right. We started about 15 years ago, I think. We started, frankly, with A Place in the Sun. And they were very good, very helpful. But there was far less agents and people on there than there are now. And frankly, unless you're prepared to pay extra money to keeping at the top, or putting lovely boxes around your properties, which is costing more money as well, frankly, you just fall further down the list on the same property. So initially we started with A Place in the Sun, and I have to say it was very successful. And it did us a lot of good to start with, so thank you, A Place in the Sun. But we moved on with The Place in the Sun to just about everyone, from Kiera, Rightmove, them all. And it was after about 5 years of that you could see the statistics falling quite dramatically. And I couldn't understand why, to the extent I actually went and met these people and sort of sat down with them and said, why is there such a reduction in leads coming through when our sort of, if you like, costs were going up with these portals? And they came up with the same thing. You need to pay more now and put that property somewhere else, and sorts of weird and wonderful things, because obviously they got to a stage where they suddenly realized, well, actually we've reached the optimum level on income probably, so the only way we're going to get more is to find little tweaks and extra little bits to make money. Very much like Jane, the sort of contacts that we were receiving, and we just recently done a promotion, and frankly, we didn't get any contacts at all.
Right.
With 12 very good properties, and yet we're on Facebook and getting loads on a daily basis.
Why do we think that is? Given I know that our company is called Property Portal Marketing, so that probably gives you some idea of what I'm going to say. But my fault.
Need to change it.
Certainly from where I stand, I'm a fan of portals, right? And I always have been, and so far, I think I probably still will be. And I'll tell you the reason why. And I think it's because, and you might agree with me, I think it's because portals still form a key part of the marketing strategy, and that's purely because a lot of them will provide some very good educational aspects towards buying property overseas. For example, Rightmove will provide a lot of things about the area, property buying guides, the legal side of it, the process side of it. A Place in the Sun will do the same. Kiero will do the same. Yeah. And it's so much easier from a brand perspective, because a lot of the time when you go to sites like Google or you go to Bing or you go to Microsoft, right, and you type in property for sale in Spain, a lot of these portals come up first. So it's much easier, certainly probably in the short to long term, and it's much more likely that if you go onto a portal, you're going to generate leads just purely off the back of that, rather than relying on your own marketing. So why, in your opinion, do you think it is that the portals themselves don't do enough to sort of, adapt to maybe the market conditions? What is it in your view that means you're getting more outside of the portals, given that those things I've just mentioned are in place?
I think that people in the day and age now that we have, my market are more definitely older people, not the young, savvy ones, because I've tried other forms of marketing that a younger person would use and it doesn't work. So we've eliminated that. And I think somebody would go on somebody like Place in the Sun or Rightmove, have a shufty round it, see what they need to know, then look who's on there, and then go to that person's website. So basically, bypassing the inquiry through Place in the Sun. I think that's how it moves across. I don't think they bother with the inquiries on Place in the Sun. And don't ask me why, I don't know.
That's what I think. We are actually questioning the efficiency of the portals now.
I think the portals are fine. As Jane says, as an initial place to go, see if you can find a property. The problem you've got is you go and suddenly put in your search engine yourself, whatever it is, and then you'll get about 5 properties the same from different agents. Where do you go? And that confuses. My view was, and I've spoken to a number of them and said, look, with respect, there are an awful lot of one-man band agents out there. And I know it just not have a problem with that, but we've got a big, complete set of people, from people in Spain, people in England, that are very experienced, well experienced. And if you ask us anything about any property, wherever it is, we'll be able to give you an answer straight away. Whereas a lot of people now that go on these websites don't. They just throw themselves on it and just hope they're going to get an inquiry, and off they go with it. And I think that the older person now, I know that the exhibitions have something to help the likes of A Place in the Sun with. Really, I think the price of the likes of Rightmove, for instance, is astronomical. What they want. And I went and saw them, and they're lovely people, but very arrogant. They think they've got it. Yeah. They've got the market, and that's the end of it. And they probably do a great job in the UK, but I don't think they do as good a job in Spain.
I don't think they do as good a job overseas, to be quite honest. I think that in general.
I think I would definitely agree with you there, that Rightmove certainly are an anomaly in terms of their pricing structure. But that kind of leads me on to saying, are you therefore saying that the responsibility of this question might be twofold, but are you therefore saying that firstly, there is a responsibility on portals to be more cautious about the properties and the agents that they're working with? Yeah. And secondly, do they also therefore have a responsibility to make sure that their pricing structure is more adaptable with market conditions?
That's the fact. And the fact is that if you go on some properties, you'll find different prices on the property. And we obviously, and I'm sure Jane does, the minute a pricing of a property changes, straight into the system, straight XML feed, straight to whichever portals we're using. A lot of people don't do that. So we've got, if you look at a property on hypothetically a place in the sun, and you look at it, the consumer is going to go to the cheapest one on the same price. And what's so much more expensive than that? And of course, by that time, these what I call secondary agents have booked a client and probably are going to succeed there where you haven't had an opportunity to discuss things.
I'm probably in a different marketplace altogether than Spain. The market is much smaller. The agents that now can afford to go on any of these portals has completely shrunk, because they're so expensive. And if you go on the Turkish portals, because there are Turkish portals, the Turkish agents are probably on there, and that still happens because I've seen it. But I used to find that on Rightmove and Place in the Sun, same property 6 times over. Ours was always up to date. Everybody else was still at the off-plan stage, even though it was built 3 years earlier. And it used to wind me up a lot. It doesn't happen the same for me because we're a different market, much smaller market.
We've basically stopped every portal bar a Place in the Sun. That's probably from loyalty as well as anything else, because I know everybody in the Place in the Sun, and I can actually get a call straight to the boss in the Place in the Sun, where you couldn't get past the sort of, no disrespect, but the administrators. You couldn't say, look, I don't agree with that. I'd like to speak to someone higher up, and then you never get a call or you whatever. But it was almost like, and if you go to Rightmove as an example, I'm only using an example, Milton Keynes there, they've got floors of staff of which there's 1 row just for Spain. And yet there's hundreds dealing with the UK. And I think in a way, I mentioned the pricing is so far out, although here I've had recently, in fact, this week, I've had a couple of portals write to me saying you can have 6 months free. Right. So it makes me wonder whether they are starting to feel the pinch as well with new properties going on.
Given that brand awareness is such a sort of a big asset to have, and Simona, you'll probably agree with me on this, given that portals in both of your opinions maybe have to put more responsibility on not only the properties they take, but the prices that they have as well, what is your value, both Jane and Iain, what is your value on the brand awareness side of it? Because Jane, I know that you mentioned that you think a lot of people probably go on the portal as the first point of call and then go to the website. Now, if that's the case, I do agree with you. I think you're definitely right there. Given where the position of property portals is when you go to things like Google or big sort of search engines, given that they always appear first, does that not then counteract that pricing argument? Because if people are going to these websites first, right, first sites they see, if they're going there first to get the information that they want and the properties, and then they're going to your site, does that view then change based on the price that they're charging? Because now they can say to you, well, actually, we're number one, we're getting the traffic, we might not be generating you the leads, but we know that people are going off to your site. Does that not then change the value of what you're placing on brand awareness?
Well, I suppose it does. At the end of the day, that's the only reason I stick with Place in Sun, purely for brand awareness. One exhibition and stick with them. Turkey, I don't think we get anything else whatsoever from Place in the Sun. There is never anything. It's always Spain. Sorry, Iain. It's always Spain. The Facebook, all the marketing, absolutely everything is geared to Spain, and the rest of the world just sits on the back burner. So all we get from them is a bit of brand awareness, really.
I think that's a very good point, Jane. I think that obviously a Place in the Sun is a business.
Of course.
I don't know if a Place in the Sun are going to watch this, but I might have a call tomorrow. I might have a really bad call tomorrow from a Place in the Sun going,
I don't think you will, because as I said, both Jane and I have said that we've stuck with a Place in the Sun for loyalty. So I think it's the other way around. I think it's actually, and I agree with Jane, it's very Spain orientated, but it's a business and they've got to go with the majority of clientele, and they'll be looking at the foot numbers coming into the exhibition, where they're going, all this sort of thing. And that's where the majority, let's be honest, the majority of UK people are heading for. So yeah, I understand what they're doing. They've got their own little thing to sort out. But from Jane and I's point of view, we haven't got time to sit and wait and hope that things will turn around using a portal. We have to say, hey, now I'll be honest with you. My son Robert, who runs the operation, really, he and I had an argument once about it because he said to me, "Oh, we should go on Facebook." I said, "Don't be silly. All the people don't know anything about Facebook. They don't know anything about Instagram. They haven't got. But I don't know how to bloody well get on it." So he was saying, "No, that's where we should be." And honestly, I just said, "Listen, go away and play me a Nintendo," because I haven't a clue what you're talking about. The truth is,
what was this argument? Nintendo 64. We had PS1s. How old is your son? In fact, how old are you, for that matter? If you're talking about Nintendos, God, blimey.
I know. Well, that's the last thing I remember buying the boys. I think that we've suddenly gone into it, and I know from your help, Chris, as well. We got an amount of contacts now. I don't worry about having hundreds of contacts, and good. Basically, we've got a mailing list that's increasing. I'm only interested in the quality of that. And I've noticed more recently that the quality of clientele that we're getting and the guys that are actually working the clients are coming back, feedback saying these are really good clients. So we're getting now today, using other forms of marketing, the same quality that we used to get from the likes of A Place in the Sun 15 years ago. And I think that's the point. I think that we've, fortunately enough, moved on, and I don't know where it's going to go because things are moving so quickly. Where do you go? But all I know is that with the team here, Simona, absolutely amazing, and I can say that to her because she's there now. But
this is not to plug our services. Thank you very much. Thank you for the testimonial. I don't want to sit here going, "Oh my God, aren't we amazing?"
The thing is, we could have gone or found someone who would have been useless helping us to get sorted on these things, and then I would have been right with the argument, and my son Robert would have been wrong. As it happens, we've been given the right people to deal with, and frankly, that means that from our point of view, what we're paying is far less than what we would be paying for A Place in the Sun, for instance, although we do maintain them. But Rightmove was miles more expensive. Kiero's hit and miss, but there's just thousands of properties on there. And the other thing with Kiero, I noticed at the time they weren't taking properties off quickly. And that was always a problem. And I never quite understood why. But there were properties on there that haven't been on the market for probably 3 to 4 months, but they were still on their site. Again, creating the wrong image for people because they're going to be thinking, "Oh, is this worth it?"
Simona, I'm interested to get your view from a marketing perspective. As I say, I'm still, my mind is probably changing the more that Ian and Jane talk.
Correct. Yeah.
I still think it's worth advertising on portals purely from the point of view that they can generate leads. Yes, it can be hit and miss with what you go on, but there are, and we might cover this a little bit later on, but there are certain things from an agency perspective that I think you can do in order to try and take advantage of portals. But I'm interested to know what your kind of view is from a marketing perspective, really, given what you've heard so far. So.
Okay, so if I would go...
Please agree with me.
Pricing is always a hot topic when it comes to using these portals. And on my perspective is value versus cost. So it's going to be pricey and you need to agree or come to an agreement with yourself that you are willing to pay the cost for the value that it provides to you. So the value that these portals provide to real estate agencies needs to be taken into consideration. So yes, they have competitive pricing sometimes, and some of them might update or be as quick as updating and keeping up with the listing. It's just you need to understand if the return on investment it's worth it for you, and if the value of this portal, if the value that these portals provide, it's enough for you as an agency. So on my point of view, when it comes to using the portals, because you've been doing that for years, by now all agents understand how it works. Market shifts, people attention, how they are trained to look at the feed they are receiving online is shifting. So I don't have much experience, honestly, I don't have much experience as an agent using these portals, just as a consumer going on the portals to get information or to find a home. So for that buyers that they are determined to buy, going on those portals that are already known and they already come with a backup might be the easiest way than going on social media. But then again, it depends on that specific audience, so the target group, their conditions. So for me, real estate agents should actually consider the value they get from the portals before the cost. Because the cost is going to increase or they're going to adjust their price. It's just on the long term, you have to consider the value that these portals are bringing. And if that return on your investment, it's worth it at the end of the year.
I think if and funnily enough, I am actually going to do a podcast, not maybe next week, but the week after. I'm going to do the same thing, but with the portals directly, right, to get their view, because it's always good getting a comparative view. Let's just be frank about this now then. What do you think now, given where we are, what do you think is the responsibility of a portal now in that case? What is their responsibilities? Is it still to just generate leads for agents because that is what they are going to be judged on? Or is it, well, actually they need to provide more of an education to people looking to buy property, because don't forget, they are there to service agents and they are there to service their people visiting
so they need
the
to be
site as well.
efficient.
So
I think efficiency on these portals should be the main criteria. So they are offering you visibility, so that they do, and they're going to provide lead generation, generating leads. Fine. They also have to be very efficient in that process.
The thing about this is, and again, there's a lot more going on in certainly Spain. I'm sorry, I can't talk about Turkey, but in Spain, there's a lot more going on with people that have a far better understanding of what to do in Spain than they did have even 15 years ago. So I think that what we've said, that really a portal is only a vehicle these days. The responsibility of the portal is more in the way of making sure that the agent or the likes of us are properly secure from a client's point of view. In other words, we have things like AIPP, other little areas where we have to comply as an agent, as they do in estate agents in this country. You have to be a member of something. But I find a lot of people on the portals don't have anything. They just go blogs, that's it. Whereas ourselves, we've been a member of an institution for over, 10 years. I think we've got a 10-year sticker coming any day to go on our advertising saying, we've been a member of this group for 10 years and we've never had any complaints with all the usual things. But I think that's something that the portals should be recognizing and saying, look, these are the sort of people we want. But I appreciate the commercialism part of saying, well, actually, at the end of the day, if they're prepared to go on our website and pay whatever it costs, should we, as long as their XML feed into our website isn't going to affect anything, should we worry? And so I think the consumers have a slightly different view now, and I think a lot more know what to do. And I think that we, as the agents, professional agents, should be educating the client as to what they need, because most of them are individual, and you can read a bit of paper of how to buy a property, and it'll probably work for 1 out of 5 people. So we don't do that. We just say, you want to know about property, ask us. We'll tell you about everything you need to know as an individual on that property. And I think that the portal, their responsibility is to get the client, induce the client to the right agents in the respective countries.
And I think I've had this conversation with Place in the Sun before today on more than one occasion.
Is the name being mentioned again?
Because I've stuck with Place in the Sun for 20 years nearly. So I've moved across to Rightmove, I've come back again, and I've stuck with them. And I can understand their argument with me is that they are a company like you or I, and they have to make money. And as far as I'm aware, it's not up to them. They do not particularly vet agents, developers, projects.
No.
And I think when they come on, they can't deny that they don't. But is it their job to do it? That will be their argument. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Jane, I think you made a very valid point there, and Ian, you've made a valid point as well, which is whose responsibility is it to vet those agents that they're working with? I suppose, and this is probably one of the things that I will ask in a couple of weeks when I actually talk to the portals directly. But I think there's an argument for both sides, really. I think that the argument
I do as well.
From an agent point of view, it would be great, and from a consumer point of view, if they went to the portal and they knew that they were working with a credible, trusted agent, right, who had good properties, who were proactive in the market, who updated their listings and blah, 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 right, did all of that, and what was being advertised was by this wonderful person who they could trust. Yeah. The other side to that is the processes involved of vetting that agent are difficult. You've got to spend money to vet that agent. That's difficult. And also then as a business, can you still be viable as a business if you go and vet the amount of agents that want to advertise with you? If you start that process, does that mean that actually what's going to happen is you're going to lose half of your client base? I think there's an argument.
They'd lose more than that. They'd be in trouble financially. They wouldn't have enough to work with.
Well, you see, I'm not so sure, because I think that we would do more with them, a lot more other things, ancillaries with the Place in the Sun than we do now, because we think, well, it's not worth it. We're talking about return on investment, return on capital. We have to obviously quite rightly decide whether this is going to be right. And Simona's absolutely right. That's all we work off. Jane and I sit down there with the team and say, that's costing us, I don't know, 60 quid a lead or something or whatever. We can get that for £10 a lead. Why are we mucking about here? We can have 6 leads to 1 lead. So then, of course, as Jane will tell you, as I do, I'd rather have 1 very good lead than 6 bad leads. So there's the dichotomy there as well of making sure that what you're doing is absolutely right for your business.
Would you, interesting question here, right? Talking on return on investment, and Simona, you're going to love this one. Would you therefore pay more money to a portal if you knew that the leads that you were getting through had been qualified in advance?
That's a very good question. Now,
whose responsibility that is essentially what I'm getting at?
I think it's us. It's Jane and I's responsibility in the team to qualify a lead properly.
Jane?
I think I agree as well, because you can't expect Place in the Sun to deal with every inquiry because they haven't got the expertise and the knowledge. They might be able to chit-chat to a person, but they won't be able to filter out from them the requirements, the needs, and what they're looking for. So I think it'll be a problem. I think you've got to qualify it yourself and then decide, is it hot, warm, or a non-starter?
If, however, and I know there are some portals that do this, Connect Houses being one of them, if you knew, however, that a Place in the Sun had a team that basically rang the inquiries or emailed the inquiries and said, thanks for your inquiry, give us an idea of what you're looking for, and we'll send that across to the agent, and that person has come back to you, and therefore they are genuine in terms of being a buyer, would that therefore mean that the value has increased, therefore you're more likely to continue investing with that portal? What's your kind of view on that? I get your point about the qualification side of it. Of course, the best people to speak to on the lead side of things is, of course, the agent. But if you were being charged 300 quid, let's say, a month for a portal who you knew that you were going to get decent qualified leads off, surely that increases the value of the advertising.
It does, but you'd run it first for 6 months and try it, wouldn't you? Then decide yourself whether they're qualifying them properly.
Well, that's the point. What is qualification from their point of view and our point of view? I ask all the relevant questions. Our team understands that your client might say something which will lead on to 20 other questions off that one comment.
I might add something. They're going to start, if they're not already, they're going to start using AI to actually deal with this topic. Yeah. So they're not going to need to hire an entire call center of people, but they are going to train AI to go and screen.
Simone, but that's going to cost us. We're going to end up paying for that privilege anyway. because fees are going to go up, rates are going to go up, and before we know it, Jane and I are putting our hands in our pocket again, and we'll be thinking, hang on, we've got people here that do that for our company as a culture. So Cameron's, our company has a culture, and it might not be the same as a lot of agents, which would not come through from the portal doing that work.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, valid points. And I think probably what you'd find is that price would probably increase as well of the portals, because obviously they would have to invest in a telesales team and things like that. Again, from my perspective, I don't think they need to do that right now. I agree with you that it is an agent's responsibility to qualify those leads correctly. I'm looking at it from a quality point of view, because at the end of the day, that is mainly essentially what portals are judged on. They should be judged on the other aspects, which is also the brand awareness, the loyalty, what else do they offer. But there is an argument here that says, well, actually, if property portals produced more quality inquiries, would that increase or would that therefore increase the value that they could put on them? And yes, it would, ultimately.
Well, it's a cost. But
it is.
Also, from a staffing point of view, one or two of the staff's going to say, well, hang on, I'm not here, I'm not required anymore, really. So we're going to have that side of it as well to look after, because the price of a lead, Jane and I are going to tell you, is going to be that much more expensive. And then you've got to weigh that up against all the other things that go on with a lead.
So who owns the leads from property portals?
From property portal.
Is it the agent that owns the lead? Or is it the portal that owns the lead? What do you think, Jane?
I've never thought about it. But
is this another contentious one where we went from the place in the front?
Well, we all know that years and years ago, 20 years ago, they were sold on 55 times at a cost. Yeah. I mean, that was normal practice, wasn't it? And you used to get your own leads back, and you used to think, I'm sure I've seen this before. I don't think that happens anymore. Possibly, I don't know where the legal line would be on that, Chris.
Well, I think on a portal, if a property that's got our logo beside it and someone's made an inquiry on that, intellectual property is ours.
I would like to think so.
Cameron's, they've come onto Cameron's property as opposed to maybe towards the others, say. So intellectual property would tell me, and I might be wrong, so I'm not legally, I don't know, but my thought would be that the minute they press that button to say that they want to make an inquiry, it's ours.
And I would say, and I'm going to stick up now for Placing the Sun, that probably one of the companies that never actually did that, as far as I'm aware.
No,
they were straight down the line. There were others that did it, but Placing the Sun were never like that. To my knowledge, still don't do it. So they've been straight.
Rightmove, Kiero, MeMove, they don't do that either.
The thing about it is you've only got to notice that if you look at Placing the Sun, they're pretty fragmented. From staff point of view, they've been there for years, and the loyalty therefore is there. You look at Kiero, I get an email from them every now and again with someone else is writing to me because they're changing staff and they think, oh, let's bung out a marketing thing and see what we can catch. So I think that on that basis, I'd like to hope that there is some loyalty to us from Placing the Sun as a vice versa thing.
Yeah, I've got relationships. I've got some really good relationships with a lot of the portals out there, and I do have my favorites, and they will. I'm not going to mention any names, right? Because I'll get myself into hot water.
Well,
they know who they are. They know who they are for sure. Yeah.
I just hope when I go down to London to see a Placing the Sun that they've got plenty of wine ready for me.
That office opening they had was really good, actually.
Oh, great.
Where do you think the future lies for property portals now, then? Is there an argument that says they should be more, and I know some of them did it already, but they should be more open to lower costs during more difficult periods? Where are they? What is the future for the portal industry, do you think?
I think that question we'll need to see come the renewal dates for everybody, because obviously I don't know about Iain, but this year's been the toughest I've known in 20 years. And so that'll be for me, it'll be for every agent in Turkey. So there'll be other smaller countries like ours that will have also had such a bad year. So it'll be interesting to see when our renewals come up and they look at what they produce for our money from the last year, what they offer. They knew mine were poor last year against the year before. They put them up the year before because I'd had so many, but I didn't get any decrease this year. So it'd be very interesting to see now, because looking at what I've had for the first 6 months of this year, it's far worse than a year ago. So I'm presuming the 12-month numbers will be equally as bad. So what will they do for their agents to keep their agents? Because nobody's going to spend money. Not a lot. Maybe UK-based ones are probably the only ones that will spend money with them. So they need to look after the UK-based agents, in my view, because the Turkish certainly won't pay the costings because of the lira and the value of the lira now. So they're going to have an issue, I think, keeping people on their books unless they bend a little, or do some offers, or bring up something, some sort of incentive. For me, they need to push Turkey more, because they don't push it at all. And I look at their social media page, because they just don't do very much for Turkey. It's known. Everybody knows it, but they probably don't do it for Malta, and there's probably lots of other countries that slot into the same bracket. You look at their Facebook page, it's constantly Spain, and commercially that's what they've got to do, but surely they can add some more and do a bit more work. It's not rocket science to mix it up and do a bit more. They don't need to drop what they're doing for Spain. They just need to add some more in, because at the end of the day, they are called a place in the sun, and there are lots of places worldwide in the sunshine.
You're definitely going to get that call.
My bill's just gone up.
You're definitely going to get that call.
If I do any marketing with my Facebook, they always take it out.
That's it. Property portal marketing's closed.
The point is, with property,
no, I did ask you to be honest, to be fair.
Yeah.
So
portals are great, but what they don't do is they set themselves in a bubble. What they should do is, what I would do, is to say, right, let's have 4 good agents. Let's all sit around a table and knock out something that's going to be beneficial to everybody. Nobody does that. They have their own ways. And as I say, I, like Jane, feel exactly the same thing. Unlike Jane, we have too many agents in Spain, far too many agents, of which, and I'm not being disrespectful in saying probably 80% of them aren't more than a one-man band.
I do remember, and I mean, I've had chats with a couple of the portals that are out there, actually, and I have sort of questioned them before on this kind of thing about markets being saturated. And one of the things that they came back to me and said was, well, that's one of the reasons that the prices have increased. It's to try and stop Joe Blogs with in his bedroom. And the new rules that have been introduced in Spain recently will stop that as well. But globally, one of the things that they've tried to do is put up the price to try and sift out those agents that aren't your professional-led body agent. I don't know how effective that's been in terms of working, but I think they are, as portals, as we've covered before, what more can they do to try and get to that point whereby, because if they do that, then again, does that mean that they risk losing a number of properties and losing a number of agents and not being able to provide the service to their consumers? So their consumers come to the site and only see 5,000 properties in Spain compared to 50,000 properties in Spain. That doesn't work from a consumer point of view.
No, the economics are actually upside down, because one-man band agent that sells a property, that will keep him going for 12 months, whereas a company like ours, one property will keep us going for the month. With all the So
a pricing structure depending on the size of the agency, maybe?
Well, I think they can use tiered pricing if they don't already, but I think they could use tiered pricing depending on the level of service they are providing.
So they use tiered pricing at the moment, but tiered pricing they use mainly based on the number of listings.
Rather
than kind of, not the size of the business. So at this point, you can have, if you're a solid agency and you're established and you have a foundation and the name in the market, so you can have a package and the price. And if you're just a beginner in real estate or one-man show, you can have this package and you can have this amount of listings or this amount of freedom within the platform.
But the problem is, if you were there, then they're probably going to get less money out of that. So to make it viable is going to be very difficult. And I sympathize on that point. But the truth is, that's really the way it's got to be. It's got to be agents that are been around, well established, have a number of staff, have cars all over, and don't forget we're in Costa del Sol, Costa Blanca. We're in a huge range of an area, and therefore we've got far more properties on. An agent who suddenly realizes that there's a couple of little areas in, say, Costa Blanca that are very, at the moment, all new build, and that's where they want to be. They just bung all that, and we've had to pay for all our properties to still have these properties in Costa Blanca. But our pricing is absolutely through the roof against theirs.
Let's briefly touch upon the sellers when someone is selling their home, because one thing that's happening in the UK at the moment is, obviously, I'm not going to talk badly about Rightmove, but I think one thing, and I see it because I'm in a couple of groups, is their price in the UK is going up and up and up and up, to the point where there's agents that are paying more than 1,500 quid a month to advertise listings, right? And the argument has been, well, firstly, Rightmove, are they too expensive for what they're producing? But secondly is, from a seller's point of view, do sellers need to see that you're on portals in order to show that you are being active about selling their property? When you go and say to somebody, well, this is how we sell your property, we're doing social media, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing the other, are portals an important aspect of that? Because if they are, that is something also to take into account when you are considering advertising with them. So what is your view on that side of things, the seller side of things?
I think I agree, because when you're talking to a seller and you're bringing them on your books, we tend to bring ours in exclusive if we can, because then nobody else has got them. We obviously use the likes of, it goes on our website, we do it on our social media, and we put it on Place in the Sun, and it's always a pull because people want to be on somewhere like that because it's the name, isn't it? Nearly everybody looking in the overseas market has heard of Place in the Sun or Rightmove. And if you tell them that when you come on board with us, it's then going to go on Place in the Sun, then I also think it gives you a bit more air of respectability. Yeah. And it always has done. I think it had more value 20 years ago than it has now. I think it's lost a bit of that value. And that's because there are so many other places to market. And again, I think that brings social media more into it, because you can put it on social media, and I think you'll do just as well whether you're on Place in the Sun or not. I think you'll just get across the board. I
think that's absolutely right. We obviously deal mainly in new builds, but the ones that some of our new build people have bought 3 or 4 years ago want to sell. And I give it to one particular woman who actually looks after everything. So she then markets it to local agents. And we found that rather than actually putting it on a portal, that actually worked better.
We do both. We use the locals as well. So we do both. But English people, I don't know, maybe it's just in Turkey, but English people like to know that it's going somewhere respectable. Maybe that's because of the Turkish agents that we have to fight with on a daily basis, because I'm on in a small resort, but I bet there's 80 Turkish one-man bands.
That's it. Well,
and so people come to me with all the resales, and then I can pick out the Turkish agents that we work with and say, right, I've got these resales if you want to work with me on them. And that's why we sort of get quite a lot. And I think this year we've picked up so many, we've got more than we've ever known before, really. But the minute you tell them how you're going to market it on Place in the Sun, they're all very happy. Even some of the developers are happy with that. They still think the Place in the Sun Rightmove is a place to put their properties.
I mean, the Place in the Sun is known by most consumers.
Yeah.
Certainly in the UK market, Ian, for sure.
Whether they're looking to buy or not, they'll have watched the TV program, they'll have it somewhere. So it's a good brand name.
Do you know what I'm wondering though? I don't know why somebody in the UK yet hasn't set up a portal called A Place in the Rain. Take on the likes of Rightmove for the UK market and call it A Place in the Rain.
Yeah. I think you could certainly do a golf portal called A Place in the Rain.
You know what? Talking of new portals, actually, it's quite funny. On a monthly basis, I must get 2 or 3 emails from new portals that are floating about, and the argument is the same. It's always the portals out there don't do enough. We're going to start doing this, that, and the other. And I'm like, but what you're selling me is exactly the same as everybody that's out there. And I think One of the things that I always say to agents who want to advertise on property portals, because as you know, I still think they're a good idea, and I'm going to keep plugging that, by the way, even though we feel like we've trashed a few of them. I think one of the things that is very important to put in is if you are going to go and advertise on property portals, whether they're existing or whether they're new, is to just be 100% clear on what you're going to advertise, making sure that what you're advertising is relevant for the portal that you've chosen to advertise on, right? And that you judge that portal not only based on return on investment for you, but also potentially return on investment for the consumers who are visiting the portal. I think that's quite an important point to make. And if you don't do that analysis, then it's not going to work for you, because there's a lot of and I sold it to agents, right? I sold packages to agents. That's what I did. And do I say this? For me personally, I don't think it was that difficult. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. But what I mean by that is, I do think that some agents have a very short-term view of advertising, to the point where if you're a new portal and you ring them up and you say, hey, by the way, we've got this really great offer. It's going to cost you 150 quid for 6 months, 100 properties. Do you want to give it a go? Most agents will probably within the first 30 seconds go, yeah, that's fine. We'll send you a feed. Whereas actually what they should be doing is asking the right questions, which is, right, what is your target market? Who are you going after? Where are you appearing within the search results? What are your goals as a portal? What makes you different compared to all the portals that are out there?
That's it.
Would I be right in sort of that analogy?
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely right. And that's why when I got a thing through from one of the other portals saying, here, click, have 6 months free, I very quickly went back in our data and said, okay, what are you going to do differently to the last time that we invested in you? Because actually we got absolutely nothing. So what are you doing more that's going to make me feel confident to invest in you? Because that's what we're going to have to do.
And most of them will come lower down the rankings than your own website to start with. So it's a bit pointless, really.
It also actually, funny enough, there is an argument for saying that some of those...
You know, my wife is going to walk right behind us. So come say hello to everybody. Come on, come say hello.
Where's that lovely lady?
Here she is. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Now, sorry.
We're going to keep this in, by the way, don't you? I
think actually you've got to be careful with portals. I actually think, my personal opinion in, some of it dilutes you. If you're in everything, I think it's diluted you. And I think, therefore, there is a bit of a standing. As I say, Place in the Sun still has a good reputation, certainly in the UK. But as I say, it's a loyalty thing more than anything. And obviously, we use a currency. We're embedded in them as they're embedded in us. So I think we'll always be able to talk openly. But I just think that as a general rule, we're two different businesses that are working in different environments, looking for different things and expecting different income. And it obviously conflicts from time to time. And from Jane's point, I agree. We're just not getting enough. And we can either sit there and put our hands in our head and start crying about it, or go and find something, because that's what we do.
Definitely, there is an argument here, and I think that's very clear that's come out of this. There is an expectation on portals to adapt to market conditions, to adapt to their clients, and to do more for consumers and for the agents who are ultimately paying their bills. But I also think what's come out of this as well is that there is an argument for agents to be a lot more specific or a lot more analytical about what they're doing on portals as well. Because I don't think advertising on portals should be just down to the portal directly. I do think agents themselves need to take some responsibility in terms of what they are advertising to. So good. All right. So in that view, because we're coming up to the hour mark now, so thank you very much. In that view, I think, would we agree that portals probably still are a means of advertising, but it's just about being more careful and having I don't know, having a more measured approach?
Maybe listen a little bit
both
more.
sides. From both sides?
I think the portals have gone from being an absolute priority in our businesses as agents, almost secondary, but we need to have some form of portal. Whereas our primary place of business is not the portal.
You have to go out and do it yourself.
But there is still a place for them. It's just we need to be a little bit more careful about what we're doing with them, how we're doing it, and from a portal side of it, a little bit more understanding about the agents market.
I think
and generating
agents that have
leads.
been around a long time have now
yeah.
moved on with technology and everything, whereas I think Place and Stun are still where they were.
You just killed them, basically crashed.
We might have to change.
I think because you both are advertising with a Place in the Sun, and they are one of the biggest names in the industry. Obviously,
And
there
we
was
have
going to be
given them a
quite
lot of credit. Come on.
There was going to be quite a lot said, and there is no point. There is absolutely zero point in doing these podcasts if all we're going to do is come on board and say, "Oh, aren't they fantastic?" Right? That's pointless. You know, I can do that myself. So
I think they have more.
You know,
they have more phone calls saying about the costs probably than anything.
I think you're probably right, to be honest. I think you're probably right. And I really like a Place in the Sun. As obviously I worked for them, so obviously I'm going to have some bias. But even without the bias, I'm a big fan. They've got a really good name for themselves. I like them as people. But there are things that they would probably admit themselves that they could probably improve on even. And in terms of the other portals that are out there, obviously, we haven't really mentioned those.
Because we've all stuck with Place in the Sun because of the best they are.
There is Rightmove, and we know the things. We know the things with Rightmove, and there is Green Acres, and there are houses, and there are a whole load of others, I think. And every one of them is slightly different, but I think from an agent's point of view, what's different about them is how you take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Is there really any point advertising on 3 portals that all to take advantage of the UK market? Probably not. And all of that kind of stuff.
If we could afford as a company to have one person doing nothing but looking at portals, looking at moving stuff around, looking at moving property here, there, and everywhere, we don't. We need the portals to help us with that. Even where we are, it is quicker for me to put something on the Facebook, I get a response straight away.
Yeah.
The market is moving that way.
Shifted.
Yeah. When you get a new property, straight on Facebook with it, go through the XML feed and into whichever portal it is, and it sits there. It might be at the top of that little thing. Hey, listen, you go on Facebook, media.
Yeah. An instance, people see it. Yeah.
All right, well, look, are there any questions that you guys have for me or for Simona?
When are you reducing your charges?
When am I reducing my charges? Give over. Give over. Honestly, when am I reducing mine? I should be increasing them, not reducing them. Look at the value that you're getting, Ian.
I'll tell you what, I have mentioned...
You opened the doors early here, mate, because you said that we were doing a fantastic job, right? I'm a salesman, right?
Yeah.
That means ka-ching, prices going up.
Yeah. And
You spoke too early.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. And I have mentioned, obviously, Simona, who's wonderful. I haven't mentioned Valley as well, who does an awful lot of work for us. I think we should mention him because he's fantastic as well,
Well, you see, the
biggest problem we've got is you, Chris.
The Chris Thompson's fund is running a bit low. My holiday fund's running a bit low. So renewals have got to come around at some point. So Simona's probably going to ask me for a pay rise after this as well. I think it is about creating value, and at what point does that become too expensive? Question that I don't think anyone can answer. Even though I don't think the portals can answer that question. At what point does it become too expensive? And it's the old adage, isn't it? It's the ROI,
Yeah.
So, if there's nothing else, I think we've had a good, fun hour there, haven't we? Whether I'll still be in a job tomorrow morning, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Look, honestly, as I said, there's 0 point coming on these things and lying because it's, you've got to say it how it is. How do we improve if we don't say it how it is? We never do.
At the end of the day, everybody is trying to do their best, and without a doubt.
Exactly.
And I understand that, whether it's a portal, whether it's us, Jane and I, whether it's you, we're all trying to do our best. Now, if we're maybe focusing on the wrong thing, that's where we need to revalue what we do. That's all.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, thank you very, very much for coming on board with us and talking to us about portals. Hopefully, I know that we've got some subscribers. I think, are we on double digits yet, Simona? Come on, we must be on double digits.
I haven't looked.
Surely.
Honestly, this
We've had some good traction, which is good. So if there's any agents out there who do want to collaborate, it's Jane, Turkish Connections, obviously Turkish property, and Iain from Cameron's property, Spain, Costa Blanca, Murcia, and Costa del Sol. So you probably offer a paella now, aren't you?
Listen, you come around my place in Spain, I'll make one for you.
You're not in Spain now? You're in
No,
UK?
I'm in Spain at the moment.
Oh, it's UK tapas then. What's that, burger and chips?
Well, fish and chips.
Fish and chips. Fish and chips.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, look, thank you very much, Simona. Thank you as always. And okay, everybody, and have a great week. Episode 6, we will be doing, I'm not sure, episode 6 to follow.
What's this space?
What's this space?
Yeah.
And please do like and subscribe. Any questions, let us know. Guys, all the best. Thank you very much. Have fabulous weeks. Take care.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.